Hello everyone, welcome to another stream. So we're going to continue with the XT0 build. Really said XT, but XT0 build, which is a double dragon and tri-zero combination build. So today I want to try and firstly finish doing the belts for the Z-axis. I'll explain that in a second. I want to get the X-axis on, and I want to at least run the belts for what is essentially the Y-axis. So again, I'll explain that in a second. Hello, Sir McSquishy. Nice to see you. So yeah, I'll just briefly explain again. In the corner there, you'll be seeing some logos pop up. So LDL Motors were kind enough to supply the main driving motors for the printer, NEMA 14s. They were also kind enough to supply two Orbiter V2s with filament sensors. Will go on the tool heads, obviously. Batis were kind enough to donate two Voron, Batis Voron hot ends, Dragon hot ends. So they'll obviously be going in the Dragon Burner tool heads. And then the next one that will pop up will be Cartographer 3D. Now, this is not going to have a Cartographer 3D probe on, but Richard was kind enough to send me some stuff for the build, a control board, and a couple of other bits. So just thought I'd have that logo up there as well, just to say thank you. And there's links to LDO and Fatus down below, the actual products that they've supplied. Found a kebab place that has opened near me. Nice. Okay, Richard. Cool. See you in a bit. So yeah, so let's get started. So let me explain. So last week we left it. I've changed the lens over, so we've got to get a bit closer. So last week we left it basically. I'd put the motors on, the Z motors, sorry. So these are not LDO motors. I'm hoping potentially at a later date to change those out to some branded ones. Say at least these are just sort of ones I had laying around. So I'd fitted the motors, fitted the skirts. We'd put the idlers on, and that's about what. And then we sort of were playing around with like where the electronics are going to go, etc. What I've done in the meantime, I've actually gone ahead and fitted the belts on these front two drives, stepper motors. Now the reason for that is, and to start with, I was going to use some non-Gates belt. Just what I had laying around, was going to use the Gates belt off this printer for some of the motion system. However, I was not happy with how I did a little mock-up with one of the belts, and I wasn't happy with how the parts went together. I also managed to crack one of the parts as well. Basically, there was a lot of tension going into this part. So basically, this purple part here is the belt clamp. Let me better zoom. So this is essentially the belt clamp, and it attaches to screws on the other side. The problem is the belt that I had planned to use slightly thicker than Gates belt, which meant it was really difficult to get everything screwed and put together. So I used one length of the Gates belt that I'd taken off this printer just to see if that was better. It was. So what I then did was reprinted the red part here, and what I actually ended up doing is printing it in a different orientation than what it's recommend, or not recommend, but is set up for. That was just my preference to do that. You probably don't have to do that. But yeah, so I did one, and then I thought I'll just do the other as well. That's when I then ran into another little issue. So what is left to do is basically do the rear part of the motion system. Now the problem is, let me get the part that we are going to need. I think I put in here. So this is the rear belt clamp part. Now the problem with this is that it kind of has to almost clip into the back here. So I need to take this off, which is not a huge problem because we're not that far involved that we can't do that. So that's what we're going to start with. We're going to start with the rear belt, and that will be the Z-axis belts done. Then we can move on. So first thing I'm going to do is take this off. Then we'll look at the length of the belt that we do the rear axis. So okay, so let me find a Allen key. Wrong one. Yep. So first thing I'm going to do is just take the take this bed mount off. Then this will allow us to install the bed, the belt mount before we put it on. But we also need to put the belt into the bed, the belt mount, before we put it back on. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So then, because I then now don't have any other Gates belt, I'm going to use the belt that I was going to use on the rest of the printer, and it doesn't really make a huge difference for the rest of the printer. I don't think there'll be any issues with how the belt clamps in, but we'll see when we get to that stage. Those screws, then this can just come off like that. So this rear belt mount basically this, as you can see, doesn't really sit on here until it's sort of pushed on like that. So I'm hoping that this is then going to give us the bit of clearance that we need for this to fit down a little bit. There we go. I'm just going to hold it up and see. Rub on there now. It felt as if it did for when I tried to put it in there. So let's get this attached. I'm not this, so what we've got over here. And then what we'll also have to do is these should be fine. So just for reference, are M3 by 8. We'll get 4 of those. So when we get onto the x-axis is when we decide, you remember from first couple of streams when I was looking at some of the printed parts, that I printed 4 variations of the carriage, because basically the Double Dragon, as it's on GitHub, has T0 on right hand side, but for the way I understand it is that T0 should be on the left. So that's what I'm going to be changing with the different carriages. Was this a working T0 or a fresh build? This was a FormBot kit. This was a V0.1 working build, worked absolutely fine. But I would say it's basically indistinguishable from being a build. Yep, working on your trident. Good job. I've got my trident behind the camera. But yeah, so this was a working build before I changed it. Okay, that feels as if it's going to be a lot better. What I'm also going to do is take the little bit. Take the rear D-belt adjuster out. I'll show you why we're doing that in a second. Okay. And I'll actually have to take this whole bearing stack out as well, because what we're going to have to do is basically create the belt loop and then put this onto it as we put everything back together. I'll take that out completely. Hopefully be able to get the bearings out. Okay, so belt. So this was one of the lengths of belts. Printing on the PLL F frame, like my V0 D0 box for that, and so they are the fancy coloured and etched frames. Is that right? What I'm just going to do is cut the ends of this belt where they've been squished and in other belt clamps, so that we're starting with 2 fresh ends. And what I want to do is sort of mock it up first to see if I can sort of roughly see how much belt I need before I cut anything. So what we actually have to do is the belt clamps into this side of the mount with like a printed feature that pushes in there nicely, and that actually the belt I was going to use wouldn't even fit in there, so that's how I knew it was a little bit too big. And then what I use, ruler, to push it in a little bit more, get it seated below the thing there. So what then this will do, this mounts like this. So we're going to go down and then back up, and it's not essential at the moment that this is actually on here at the bottom. This is just to get an idea of roughly how long this belt needs to be. We will just put it on there, so that this drag that. we might still have to adjust the rear pulley anyway. So this will then sit up there, and then I think we want it about, probably about there. But what I want to do is measure how long that is and see if it's the same length as these, which are 470 mil, or if it's a little bit longer. I'm just going to see roughly how long this works out to be. Yeah, so I'm going to cut belt at 470 millimeters long, and that should be enough do the loop. So that means you'd have 3 470 mil length belts. Just put that roughly to length. Flat on the tape measure. That is actually about roughly the length of this belt. So you can get 2 out of an old V0 belt for the Z-axis. Okay, so let's now put this in properly. So again, we put this into half of the belt clamp. Then we're obviously going to put the loop round there. So what I might do is just do that. Show you. What I've done is just looped it round. Then I'm going to put this end into the belt clamp, like that. That end in. Then we can fit this back on. We have to just make sure that we get this belt to the guide, or the space for belt, I should say. Get one screw in there and that'll hold it on one side. One in the other side. Line it up. So when that's on there, get the rest of the screws in first. I'll show you a better. Don't want to do these screws too tightly. We're not, because otherwise we run the risk of either cracking printed part or pressing the carriage too much. Just get them in to start with. What I'm trying to do here is by alternating the screws I get in, we're sort of putting equal pressure on the part rather than putting all in one side first. Then we'll go around and just snug them up a little bit. Which ones I did and which ones I didn't. Okay, so that should be fine. What we'll do is we'll then lower this down so it's near the bottom. So yeah, I think I need to bring the pulley out a bit. So we'll do that first, so that we're not rubbing against anything. Now show you this. The printed part has a little V groove here, and that is so you can still access the grub screws. I'm just going to loosen both of the grub screws so that I can move that, and then that will give us a better that's interesting actually. The belt clamp sort of positions the belt so it still rubs a little bit on this printed part. So I wonder if that should have been on the no. So yeah, that's a little weird, but we'll reposition that in a second. So what we want to do is to actually put the bearings around the belt. Oops, and then put the printed part back on, and that's so that we can then put it into the tensioner. Then this has to go in, this only goes in one way, so let's make sure we get that the right way around. Goes that way around. Belts on, the belt in, and then basically push the bearings in, and we'll line them up. M3 back in. This M3 is really just acting as a pin, not it's not clamping anything. That can then go in the tensioner at the top. Might still be too long, that belt actually. So forget what I said about being a 470mm belt. Might have to shorten that a bit more actually, but we can now do that with yeah, so I'm going to have to take this off before I go to that hassle. Even when it's at the top, it's still, that won't have any impact on. Okay, so take that off again. This maybe is a little bit of a faff doing this. You can't access this belt clamp without taking the bed off, the rear part off. we have quite a bit of available adjustments, so I'll probably take 10 mil off that off that belt, I think. How long was the other belt? Doesn't really make some. Don't recall seeing anything in the documentation about belt length. That might be something that could and should be added, but it isn't. So yeah, what I'm going to do is just basically take one end of this belt out and on document. I want to double check that I'm putting belt clamp the right way round. Looking on the Try0 GitHub page description. You've got it the yeah. Right back. Basically what I'm pairing things. So basically on the GitHub page, I can see there's an image where this is the other way around. So let's take that off and change it. That means we might have to use longer screws, because then we're going to go through the part into threaded inserts. But make sure the pulley was the right way around. Okay, so that can come off. What I'll do is I'll shorten the belt while I'm here. I'm going to take about 10 mm off, I think. So that will make it about a 460, I think I said. About. So I've just shortened that belt, and then I'm going to basically put that back as it was into the belt clamp. Then push the belt down so it's below the surface. And then what I need to do is put the belt clamp on the other side, so that the belt is essentially enclosed, so it can't come out. This has to go a certain way round, is that way. Remembering to put that in. It should be about there. Like that. So, see if the no, we'll get rid of the 8s and 3/8. Let's see. Long enough. This is a 12. Let's one in and see if that fits. See how much of that goes in. Yep, so those rear ones need to be 12. M3 12. That gets good engagement into the footed insert. That sort of slides okay in there. I mean, luckily the Z is not what I might just do is again a mock up to make sure that this belt is now the right length. So done that wrong. I have to just flip this part around. All I'm doing is flipping the top idler tensioner printed part around so that I can then put it in the right way around. Okay. All I've done is basically flip that part around. So there. Go on. Yeah, that should, I would probably actually shorten that a little bit more. I'd probably take another 5mm off that if I was to do it again, but it should be fine. So what I'm going to do is just tighten this top screw in a little, and then that will hopefully make it a little bit easier to put the printed part back on. Put a couple in, and then we'll just sort of run it up and down and see how it feels. And obviously I've got to put that pulley at the bottom in the right place. Do that as well. Yeah, so that runs up and down, feels okay. What that will also do is sort of self-align our pulley so that I can then tighten those grub screws up again. What I'm going to do is just make sure that the belt is not rubbing on the top part of the pulley. What I've done is I've just lifted that up slightly, tightened one grub screw up, and then I'm just going to run it up and down. Now the belt is running in the middle of the pulley rather than at one end, and then we can give our grub screws a tighten. That looks fine to me. Just get a little bit more. Remember, these grub screws have got Loctite on, so they should be okay. They put. Then we can finish putting the carriage screws in. So I think, as I've said in previous streams, I'll go through the process today of doing this, but that doesn't mean that I might not make changes off camera. So like I did with the front seat belt holders and everything, I will always say in the next stream if I've done anything. So if you're thinking to yourself that I should maybe take a little bit more off this belt, I may well do that later on. So I'm just going to tighten these up. Again, not too tight. Okay, that's it. So what I'm going to do is tighten that up, and I think that will probably bottom out, but actually no, that there is quite a bit of adjustment on there still. That's all our D belts done. So I think what we'll do now is we'll do X-axis. That's out of the way. Okay, so again, on another screen, I've got the V0 manual, because we're essentially, some parts of this are very V0-esque, so we don't really need to refer to anything specific. So all we're doing now is basically putting the X-axis parts together. So what we need are XY joints. So I've got all those printed parts, and I've also done all of the heat inserts as well. They're all ready to go. What I might do is put this camera down a bit so that you can see what I'm doing. Let me find all the parts. And there are, I did print a couple of one part, so if I put something back, that's the duplicate part, I don't need that one. Of each side, start with. Also going to need stuff out of this box. Didn't think I'd put the bearings away, but I have. We need some bearings as well. We're also going to need printed spaces. Okay. Need, I think, 4. What I've also done, if I get it out and show you, so I was just messing around today and I've built the the pro part of the zero click. We'll go all through this when it's time to do it. I just had some time to kill, so I wanted to do that. So go all through that when we get to that stage. So let's take our first part. One we want, I think. Yep. So you can see that these are slightly modified parts. This is the dragon, the double dragon part. So it's slightly extended. So we need that. M325s. Gonna make a bit of room and move the printer out of the way. But obviously where I've put parts that we need. Yep. M325s. And they will go into so yeah, these go in the top here. Those are a little bit wondering if of course, because this is a double dragon, the x-axis is wider. So I'll grab a longer extrusion in a second as well. Bearing stuff. Spreading the root. Ready for the stuff. That's quite. Okay, let's get our shims out. And our bearings. Okay. So, one side at a time. Side. Then bearing stack. And a printed spacer. Then the other side is printed spacer first. Shims. Up. Bearing stack. we're basically screwing this. Where we try not to drop apart and get bearings everywhere. Okay. Tighten these up enough. Basically bring the printed parts together. Not tight enough, obviously, that we clamp the bearings too much. Then what we're going to do is put a threaded M2 threaded screw into there. So let me find those out. Yep. But they're not done. And this, I would advise you go relatively slow at putting screw in. We're forming the threads. We don't want to just go straight in. Go in a little bit and then come out again. Go in, then out. And it's just so that we can form the threads as we go and then clear any plastic out as we go. And then just make sure everything moves okay. It does. Is that we should have 19mm gap. So let me see. And if we put the ruler there, get basically exactly 19mm. That's basically exactly 9mm. Everything's running smooth. Just pinch up these a little bit more if we can. What we're doing now is basically, you know, the parts are together. We're just making sure that we probably will have to undo it slightly anyway to be able to get our extrusion in there, but that's the first one done. Basically repeat that for the next one. Let's get our 5mm screws. Making sure I put the balls. This one. Slightly over extrude part. So I've the Tri-Zero and the Double Dragon are sort of based on V0.1. But these are, I think, V0.2 parts. They should still work okay, as far as I'm aware. If not, we'll find out later. Okay, so basically we're doing some bearing stacks again. So let's get bearings. Need to get some more shims. more, so let me box of fasteners. Pretty sure I've got some here. If not, we're in trouble. Look. Box. Here we can use off camera at the moment, but try and find the I had or somewhere, but I'm not. There we go. So most of the hardware actually is made up from V0 kits that I've put together. There's been enough in basically in the kits I've put together on the channel to be able to do this. So the only exception obviously is I did have to buy some extra screws that weren't ever part of a bomb, or certainly not enough for. So start with this one. So we want 2 shims. Bearing stack. Two more shims. The other side we want printed spacer. Shims. Bearing stack. And 2. Basically the same procedure. Put that little stack together. Just enough to get together. Trying not to drop anything or over tighten anything. Like that. And we'll get that threaded M2 threaded screw in. So same as before, Don't go all the way in straight away. Screw in a little unscrew, screw in, etc. So what you're basically doing is forming the threads as you go, but not sort of accumulating any material in front of the threads as you go. Like that. Then again, make sure that they're okay. Be opened up anyway. Right, orange. Measure again. 19 mil. Yep, perfect. Might just have to do a little bit narrow there, but that should open up once we get the on. Move some stuff. Okay. The next step is going to rail on the extrusion. So because we're going to be using M3 screws here, we're using an MGM9 rail. I'm going to have to find, basically I'm not going to about to use any sort of nut bar or anything. So I'm just going to, well, I'll show you what I'm going to do. So over there. So let's get our extrusion rail. Our extrusion and our rail. Obviously, our rail carriages, double dragon, iDEX printer. So what I'm going to do, is find some free nuts. Firstly, got some in here. Might be in the box as well. I'm not sure what length screw I'm going to use just yet. I want to use black nuts if I can, so I'm going to use what I've got out here first. Do need to preload a few nuts as well, so I'm going to make sure I've got plenty. So what I've also then done is printed so this is 15 rail guide, but for an MGM9 rail rather than see you later, Sir Mixed Squishy. Love the username. Thanks for stopping by. So yeah, so we're going to be putting this rail on here basically. But what I'm going to do is, yeah, so that's what I need to decide what screws I'm. Should go in the hole, but not. Right length. That should. So let's see what size that was. So this is a 8. What I'm going to do is get a little box I've got whole bag of 8s. I'm just going to use the ones out of here. And I'm going to basically screw a nut to the rail and then slide it on, hopefully, he says. So we'll just move those rail stops so I can put one in the end. So we'll go 1, 2, 3. Let me do that. 1. Put one in the middle, I think. So we'll start with the one in the middle. So what I'm going to do is basically put the M3 in, hold it with a driver, partially thread that on. And what that will allow us to do is demonstrate, I'll show you, get it the right orientation, then just basically see that there's nut on there. What we can do is basically just slide those in, do them up. So I'll put those in, do one on the end, start with. That on. A hole going into the next one. And if you've got enough hardware, there's nothing to stop you from doing every hole. Yeah, might be a good idea to do. I'm just going to do every other now. There should be links in the description of the parts that I've ordered for this. So this is an MGM9 300mm rail with 2 carriages. That's so that we can have our both tool heads on here. Okay, so that's those threaded on. So what we'll do now, we'll try and thread this rail onto the extrusion. Try and show you that. But what that will basically mean having to do is just manipulate the nut at the end just to get it in the right orientation so that get one. Once you get one in and start going, it'll be pretty easy. You can sort of use the rail itself to rest against the. Got to go in. Maybe once we get 2 on. Not as easy as I thought it was going to be, but we should be okay. Do is just tighten that going in straight. I think there we go. Get one or two, we should be okay. So as we come to the nut, we just the Allen key to manipulate the bolt and the nut. Last one. Like that. Then what we'll do is we'll put that down. What we can then do is use our printed guides to hold the rail in the middle of the extrusion. And what we also need to do, according to the manual, have 25mm each end. Like that. What I'm going to do is just tighten one up. Make sure. Yep, so that's our 25mm. Then what ideally should do is sort of start from the middle and work your way one side. And once you've done on one way, you then go back to the middle, go the other way. That again, double check with our 25mm both ends. Have and then moving okay, so we'll just basically tighten those up a little bit more. Again, start from one end, start from the middle, sorry, and then go to one end. Like it does. That's that done. What we also need to do, is preload 2 M3 nuts end extrusion. Do that. Oh, yep. What I might actually do is use our printed thingies. I've got quite a few different ones here, so each rail actually uses a different style. That style. But then I'm going to use the ones that don't have yeah, there's a little part that sort of locates it in the rail, so I've taken ones that don't have that. They're a little bit difficult to, if the part has, the printed part that you're putting on the rail has that feature to hold it in the extrusion, the no drop nuts that have that on get in the way. Okay, so let's put our 2 nuts in. I'm hoping that enough room to have both of these. Look as if I will actually. Let me just put one in and see. Or I can push it down. Right, so I don't think we're good about use them because they will basically stop. Oh. Could be building a V0 right now, but you can't be motivated. Yeah, I get that. I would say even more. I enjoy building live on live stream, but the time between live streams, really want to actually do a bit of building, but you can't because you're trying to show it on camera. So that's very frustrating. But I can understand not wanting to, not having the motivation to build. Could be doing, perhaps do a little bit of it while you watch me. Maybe doing the threaded inserts or something like that. So that's, I'll make sure that's 25. Okay. So we've now got our rail on the extrusion. We've got our preloaded nuts. Okay. The next step is that we then add 2 preloaded nuts to the bottom of the extrusion. So we'll just make sure we don't lose anything and just flip that over. Then get 2 more nuts. That's basically for the bottom of the printed parts. Put 1 of them in each side, like that. Then basically the next step is to put the printed parts on to this extrusion. So that's the right way around. And as I said, we may have to sort of slightly loosen stuff off to give it a little bit of a flex. So we'll just do those slightly. Not enough that we sort of take them out of the printed part. Just enough so that we can sort of open it up to get the... Oops, and I knew that was going to happen, didn't I? Get our printed part on. So let's make sure we put those back in. Now they're all falling out. Okay, let's try and fix that. Do one end at a time, I think, actually. One end at a time, and then nothing should fall out. So that's that side on. Doesn't matter if they fall out this side because 12 up. So what we've also got to do is put a end stop bump at each end. So let's get that part out. We may need slightly longer screws. Let's do the M312s. Yep. I think these are spaced. Okay, so let's get an M312 in the back. Now the only problem with using blacked nuts is that you can't see the nut lines up. Let's one first. what I'm trying to do is hopefully screw into a nut through another printed part. Make sure that this is actually I think I managed to about hit the nut. So that was a 12 and that was the right length. So I think I'm going to need a longer screw to go through this. Let's try an M320. Visually hold it, that's going to be nowhere near, so we don't want to, might actually need look. Look, that's right. Basically going through. Oh, but we should be okay to get in. Two printed parts. Hope get it into those ones out. I think just to this one is might need a slightly longer screw. Got this. Might need 30. Try 30. Like it's good. 30 is going to be too long for sure. So we're going to have to try and line up the 25. I think it's long enough. Just a matter of getting the nut in the right place. Yeah. Anything like I'm about to use the same trick that we did with the extrusion itself. Didn't manage to get any of those. So we might be able to put the nut onto the end and then thread the extrusion on. Try that. Make sure that this screw is actually long enough. This needs all learning because not much of this is documented, so we can get some of it on video, then hopefully that'll help others. This was the 25. I haven't seen. No. So these, what I'm putting on here, focus, will be the end stop bumps. So when we get to it, I will briefly show you. Find one. Okay. This might not be the exact one that I use. So I've got to work out which one I want. This is the tool head carriage that will go on the rail, and then this will have a space for an end stop to go on each opposite sides of the two tools. One will home left, one will home right, way around. So the end stops are going to be on carriage themselves. There's probably nothing stopping you doing sensorless homing. I don't mind using sensorless homing. I've got sensorless homing on Trident, and it works for me. But because we're doing an iDEX, for me it makes more sense to use end stops. Then we'll get better. Let me just focus. That will give us better repeatability. Right, so that was a 12. Let's see. 20 mil. So hopefully, actually, we'll try the. Hopefully that answers your question. Got some 14. Here we right. So yeah, these are the end stop bumps that are going on the end, the XY joint. But many threads, but enough. What I'm doing here is sort of pre-threading the nuts on, and I'm going to try and slide this over the extrusion. So let's try and line all this up. So again, we'll try and manipulate the nut by moving through. That's got one on. Try and do the same again for the one at the back. Touch. Right way around. I don't think a 14 is quite long enough. Okay, find that nut. Might be very slim. Saw that one. Bear with me a second. Can't see that. Let's see if we can find another screw that will show you by. Good question. Let me double check who it was. I think I've put them in description. That name does sound. Yes, I think that is who they are by. But there should be a link in the description. If there's not, let me know. I will add one. I think what we're going to need here is some 16s. So I've got a couple here. So these are V0.2 mounts, and they will allow tool heads to be swapped so that T0 is on the left, and they have end stops and yeah, all sorts of stuff. Okay, we're going to try a 16 this time. Take that off. On. So I think he had 4 mounts on his GitHub. I printed all 4. So that I just had them, and then that will let me find the ones I want when we get to that stage. I'm just talking to myself. Back in. Camera view so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. So what we needed then was a 25mm at the front and a 16mm at the back. So let's tighten these down. Little. We're gonna have to move some stuff later anyway. Then what I'll do is I'll put our bottom nut in and stop that at the bottom. Help if my thing wasn't thick. Thing. So bottom M36. Find an M6. Try and put this one in while we're here. So these need to be a little bit loose anyway, because we'll basically adjust this a little bit later. So now we've done it on one side, we've got to do it on the other. And I just want to make sure I've got things the right way around. So I will get the part ready first. Size screws that I need. This was our 16. That we need 20. So 20. 25. So we also need to tighten other things up, but we'll do that in a second. So front. Do the same thing we did again. Put our screws most of the way in. Thread a nut on. A little bit easier. It's the only problem with black hardware, actually, I find, is that you can't, if you're trying to line something up in a hole, it's that easy to do. In. So same again, let's put that nut on. And we'll try and thread these on. What we'll have to do at this bottom nut in. That later, let's out the other, hopefully. Try and line all this stuff up. So again, try and manipulate that bolt to go in, not even. And Yeah, it's a little bit fiddly, but I think this is probably the way to do it. First one. We have to basically get this nut to go in at the sides like that. Push in, go parallel to the groove in the extrusion. What we'll do is we'll get this bottom nut and bolt in. So, oh, there we go. What we don't want is before. Basically use the light. Magnetic tools again. Okay. So that's the now fit extrusion. So it was a 25mm screw at the front, 16mm screw at the back, 6mm screw on the bottom. So what this is now asking us to do is to check got basically the bearings and the spacers all in the right places. So visually what we want is on this side have the bearing at the top, which we have, the bearing on the bottom side, and then you'll have basically the opposite on the sides. Now what we want to do is put this onto the machine. So let's have a little tidy up. Everything's a little bit loose at the moment, which is what we want, because we want to be able to slightly manipulate it when we put it onto the actual printer itself. So as long as I remember tighten everything up, we should be good. Yeah. This in. Going to raise you up again. So basically what we want to then do, put these sort of roughly in the middle, then bring this whole thing, put it on the inside of the printer. So things are going to be loose at this point. What we need to do, basically, pull the sides out that we've put on. So even if we have to slightly undo stuff, and what we do is basically pull the sides out to fill up the gap. Makes sense? So I like to try and sort of get it roughly even if I can. Remember, we've got this screw on the bottom as well. Like this. Try and sort of get it roughly the same. That was that bottom screw. Oh. Up. That's about even. Perfect. Then what we want basically are two countersunk screws in to our what we're going to do is basically put some countersunk screws in here. These will hold the things together basically. Remember where I put them? Right here. So again, this is another one of those things where you want to not over tighten stuff. Get get all the screws sort of partially started first on both sides, and then go around and tighten things up. Got all of the screws. Everything's going to be sort of loosey goosey to start with. Fine. Just going in between, going opposite sides, but I don't need to. Basically, just doing the same thing, both sides. And like I say, you'll notice that there's sort of extra holes. That's what our belt attachment. The print I have. Yep, you're right. I do have it the wrong way around. Well done. Hopefully I can very gently take those out without having to redo the whole thing. Thank you for pointing that out. That's very good of you. Let's start on this side. I assumed that the hole went all the way through. Right, it doesn't. So try and carefully undo these. And hopefully I can keep those nuts in the right place. Turn this part around. Yeah, so what Jingfei is pointing out there, that hole here, we actually thread a screw into there, that'll act as a bump that we push against. I assumed that the hole went all the way through, but it doesn't. So what I've done, just picked that up and then turned it the other way around. And I'm hoping that we'll pick those nuts up. I have to do. Definitely got the front nut. Yeah, I think I've been lucky there and bought those. They need to be a little bit loose still anyway, because we're not finished, but well spotted. We'll fix that problem. I can't remember if the original V0 bump was the flat side at the front or the back now, thinking about it. But I honestly didn't really pay enough attention there. So the same again, I'm just turning that round. Been lucky there. Well done for pointing that out. Loose. Right, let's finish putting the what I'm now going to do is basically just go and tighten these screws up. Again, don't go too mad. What I'm going to do, just going to make sure these are that one's tight, which you can see. Okay, they're all tightened up. Now this is still really wobbly. What we want to do, go to the next page in the manual, what it tells us to do, basically push this all the way to the back, so that basically everything pushed up against the motors. What I'm going to do is take it off there away, everything to the back like that. So everything's basically pushed to the back. Then this is where we can then start tightening up all the screws. So basically tells us to tighten these screws up. Now you can do it a few different ways. I like to do sort of same screw each side while holding the back. What I'm then going to do is the bottom ones. Sometimes a little bit fiddly getting the Allen key in there. It goes at it. What we're also going to have to do is tighten these up a little. I undid them. So again, not too tight. You might not have undone them as much as I did. Make sure everything moves, and that should now, doesn't quite go that smoothly. Not quite going straight. Still a little bit of a flex. So get it to the back again, make sure everything's, you might have to go through this process a couple of times, sort of undoing, tightening things up. Of course, this is slightly longer gantry as well, so there's perhaps always going to be a little bit of flex. Bottom ones as well. normally this bottom one that sort of pulls it out of. And what we'll do, you know what, you can also do it to the front if it's, yeah. Check as we go. Not anything. Better. Bit. Do the bottom a bit. Something can take a little while. All adjustment. And no idea, to be honest. Probably should have read some of the instruction, but we'll see what it does when we get. Might have done these up a little bit so tight. Let's back these off a little bit. They might have been a little bit too tight. They're still racked a little bit. I take it you've built either a double dragon or a Tri-Zero. So you probably know better than I. You'll know better than I whether a bit more. it might come back and bite me. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. Look in a second. That seems if these are correct. Quite feel right. Better. Have a look at what you're saying and just see. I should have put them on a different. I'm using these modified ones. Left is. I should be able to put it on, I think, when I put the belt on. My plan was to put this on and then attach the belt. But I'm not entirely sure. Definitely not. Down right on this side. A bit too. Feel a bit. Try one more time. Loosening, tightening again. These bottom again. Did you Faye, did you use the the whatever these parts are called, rear bearing holders? Did you use the 2-part ones or did you use the original, if you want to? Those would be the way to describe it. hold it at the front and I think that will do, because once we get the belts on, we can sort of at the point where we would put the belts on now anyway, so best way to do this is whether to do the Y belts first. So I was thinking I might have to take these off now to better run the belts. We're not going to have a lot of room to get in things around. I think I want to do the main belt first. I think I'd be better off doing the bottom one. Only quite to be. Try and do the that too. That should be okay. I don't think unplugged anything. Hello. Yeah, I think it's sort of working. I can see what it's about. I'll try and keep an eye on it. I'm going to disconnect the mic and then reconnect. So hopefully that might make it a little bit better. See what you mean. It's not always showing up on the equalizer either. So I'll keep an eye on that. But I think I'm going to try and run these belts first. Got a bit of belt here. Got to use. So hopefully hear me. I'm not entirely sure the best way of doing. See, my mic is not up all the why that would be. Worked up until now. Plugged in. See how we go. So this is going to be a little bit difficult. But these belts, not entirely sure. See, the mic is not when I'm speaking. What I can do. Another mic. Not sure if this is going to be. That might be a little bit better. Let's see if that works. Turn that down a bit. That seems a bit more responsive. Can you let me know if you can hear me okay? Yeah, we'll see if that works a little bit better. We still have some filters on, so yeah, let me know if that is a little bit better. A little bit loud. Try that. I can. Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. Right, let's try and run these belts. Now, I've got a diagram. I think it would be easier to take these motors off. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else. At the moment, these aren't going to be. These are sort of going to be in the way, I think, of being able to run the belts in here. What I'll maybe do is if I take this side off, and then we can see if that makes it easier or not. I put the Allen key. So let me just turn my background music back on. Let me know if that's too loud, or if you shouldn't be able to hear the background music. It should just be for me, but I might get in. Right, I'm going to take these motors off, I think. Sort of going backwards to go forward, but I think it would make more sense. I know it was a pain to put the other things on, even on with these on. Might be wrong. Might be going completely the wrong direction, but let's try. Take that off. Lay that over there. I think this should, I will show you. This means that I can then have a better view of this belt path here. So I'm going to try and run the belt with that motor off. Now again, don't know anything about belt length, so this is sort of going to be a bit of trial and error. But what we need to do is get the belt round the pulley here. What you should sometimes can do is sort of go up and out, give yourself a bit of length, then come back round. So I'm using the diagram I've got up here. Got to tell me which way I've got to go with this. Fish it out. So got the belt around there. So I know this worked on the other drive, so I'm not sure if it works on this one as well. Doesn't seem to want to go down into the okay. That's got the belts in there. Belts are now on this pulley. This belt has got to go basically going to be the sort of thing you need to. I don't think there's any way I'm going to be able to show you what I'm doing. Sort of a combination of using the fact that I'm using a clear acrylic panel for Okay, so that belt gone this way. That will then go. So I think you definitely need to take these motors off to be able to do this, in my opinion. So now we're going. I think I'm now going to take the end of this belt because I want the join to be on the straight. So this belt, which is massively long, I know that, goes round here. Trying to work this out. Round here, then come this way. That. Like that. Then this belt goes out here and along this pulley. I think. I mean, that looks as if it's the right way. And there, and there, and then things don't quite line up, I don't think. This belt will then down this pulley front. Me. So that should be think. So what I'm going to do is cut this belt, I think. So I should be at the slackest it can be. So let's work out actually. Let me turn this around so I can sort of show you what's happening. So I've now got two pieces of belt here. So I think that I've gone correct belt path. Now I have to work out how it factors into this. This will go on here. I'm not sure if King Fei is still here. Sound has been found out using the diagram on the Double Dragon page, one where it says it's real underneath. Let me look. I've just got the image open. Yes, I am. So I've got it Oh, I did set up a browser window. Let me just put this in studio mode. Okay, so it's not quite capturing the thing I want it to capture. Okay. I'm trying to get it to show you picture, but it's not. Okay, did that. Undid that. Okay, so actually, let me show you the. Bear with me a second. So, let me press that. So this hopefully is the image you can see. Is that what you are referring to? So you can see that's basically the path I've gone, but I'm using slightly different belt holders. I'm using these ones. These have got like an integrated, supposed to be for ooze prevention. I'm not quite sure how they work, but they think these use the called oh yeah, it's easy. I think it uses this nut. I've completely forgotten the name of that. To me, looks like it would fit on there, and then I can put a screw in to clamp to the whatever that is, the XL nut thing. I think that's how it will work for me. Let me put you on this camera. Make a beam nut, that's it. It nearly came to me, and then you've just reminded me. Yeah. So I think that's make a beam nut. Make a beam XL nut? I don't know. But it's used on the V0 to clamp the belts. I think that's how this is meant to work. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. Like, I think I can get like part of the belt in one side, and then we'll put a part of the belt in the other side, and then tighten things up. I think might just go for it and see. Got plenty of belts, so I'm just going to cut this belt, I think, roughly where it needs to be. We're at the what's the word? Slackest we can be on the tensioner. So I'm just going to cut this belt here. And then I guess it would be easier to attach this to here first. do that. I think these are 8s. Yeah. Let's attach this first, see if this works the way we want it to. And then show you what I'm doing. Okay. What I'm basically doing is attaching this to this side. Probably should have started with the other side, but and then I've got the make beam nut inside this part. These in. Right. Yeah. So what we need to basically do is get both parts of the belt into this. Behind the nut. Quite hard for me to see, let alone show you. You can see there I've got the belt. This is obviously really loose at the moment. I'm just trying to see how far in both belts are. So I think I want to try and get this belt in a little bit further. Of course, that's push this one out. I'm just tightening that up and see what it does. That seems to have clamped both belts. So that's, I mean, this is loose, but that should work, I think. Making sure everything is on where it should be. And then theoretically, if I tighten this up, just see, I think I left these loose, but I might have tightened them down. Tighten this up, it Yep, so it's about halfway. That's tightened those up nicely. So what I'm going to do is, do I take this belt out, measure it, or should I just do the same again the other side? I think I might just do the same again the other side. I'm going to tighten these down. So that we're now clamping the adjustment in. That's that one side done. I think you can see that. That belt was tight. Now, of course, we're now only doing one side. It seems to move quite as nice as I'd like, but I don't think there's anything else I can do about that. So let's get the belt on the other side. If I leave everything where it is, you might better see what I'm doing. I'm going to put this motor back on first, actually, because otherwise I'll forget and something will be moved out of place. So try and get this back into place. But just basically putting this motor back on, that's all I'm doing. Out of the way. Out of the way. That in. Show you what I'm doing, unfortunately. Trying to pull this bolt up so that I can put the no drop nut in its place. Back roughly where it should be. So that should be this motor back on. So let's now try and do the other side. Take that motor off. We just do the exact same thing but in reverse. Take this motor off. It's actually it wasn't that bad actually to feed the the belts through. Definitely helps, I think, to take this motor off. So what I'm doing. So that's that motor out of the way. Let's put the maker beam nut and screw in here. And here I got one. So I'm just putting the maker beam nut in there, and then a screw in here to hold it. But as I said earlier, things may get redone off camera, including getting some new maker beam nut. This doesn't seem to working very well. And let's on here as well. So just putting the maker beam nuts on, or sorry, the maker beam nut is in. Now putting the belt clamp on, tighten that down. Okay, so try and show you threading the belt. Belt. That should be enough, more than enough here. So I've got the diagram up if I can. Sorry about. Yeah, that's what I want to show you. We'll go between a few different things here. We've got this diagram. Across. So you can just about here make out that is the essentially pulley. So what I did is I basically came in from the top to get the belt started through. And what we want to do is to basically do that again from the other side. And I might have to move this so I can see it, but what we're basically trying to do here is get the belt looped around the pulley. And it's easier to do that by sort of coming out and back in the top. And it's just a matter of trying to fish that down into the motor. By how we did it on the other side. You have to sort of also get it to go down into the printed part. So it's sort of a case of moving both belts until it goes down. Like that. That's then on that pulley. So we then want to feed. So I'm going to start with the back one. So if we go back to our diagram, you see we want to go around the first pulley here, the pulley, and then behind this one. So that is the first pulley on the body here. So we'll grab this piece of belt, and we want to sort of basically push it along here, and by chance it comes out where we want it. So that's basically gone around this pulley, and then show you. Yeah, just there. So it's then gone around that pulley as well, and then this goes back to the diagram. So we've gone around that one, and then it's going to go on the inside of this one. Makes sense of it. Right, I'll show you. So let's see. Yeah. See here, we're on the inside. So I'm just going to pull it through so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm basically pulling that now along the belt path, and then go back to the diagram. That will then go I think yeah, so this part will go into the belt clamp basically. Let me just main menu, go back to the main camera. Yeah, so on the where these teeth are is where there's a basically a part for the belt to push into. So that's that side of the belt done for the time being. Now we have to do the other side of the belt. Let's move around again. Okay. We've now got this belt. So this is coming out of here. We're going to go back to here, right, back to here. We're going to go on the inside here, and then what we need to do, what that's going to do, I can show you, touching that belt there. So I'm going to take this belt out of the belt clamp for a second, and then use that belt, if I can, to basically grab onto the belt like that, and then I can grab it and just pull that through. So I think that's correct. And then that belt basically come out here. Like that. Okay. Might be a stupid question. Never a stupid question. But is the movement still core XY, or is it actually more like our Cartesian printer due to the iDEX heads? Yeah, so it's called hybrid core XY or Mark Forged kinematic. So basically what is happening is that these sets of motors are controlling just the y-axis. So there'll be, what do they call it, like dual motor or something. So it'll know that there's two motors controlling the y-axis, and then the two, so this, you can see where my finger is, this motor here and the one we took off here, they will have a tool head each on the x-axis. So yeah, it's called hybrid core XY or Mark Forged kinematic, something like that. I did a similar printer actually a couple of years ago using duet control boards and control methods. I don't think it is all-wheel drive. I know there are systems that use that, and it's not, I don't think it's quite the same. I think it is ever so slightly different, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong. So I just want to try and get this belt to go in the right direction. So you just basically fish it out like that. So that's now our other side. So this is where we then need to cut the belt again. If you look somewhere on the Duet website and their RepRap firmware information, that talks better about what different kinematics there are. I think that's probably the best place to get some information about it. So I'm going to try and sort of pull this a little bit tight and basically decide where I'm going to cut this belt. Make sure everything's sort of on the rollers and where it needs to be. I think so. So these are basically going to go in here. I might just cut it a bit long and I can work out where I'm going to cut it. So let's get that out of the way. So I think that I did cut that a little bit. Yeah, so that's definitely. I don't want to. So I think this through is the middle of the maker beam. So, well, it is the middle of the maker beam, but that's also the middle of the clamping section. But I want to cut it a little bit shorter than that, maybe only 1 or 2 teeth. Just so I can get a bit more on it. I can hold the, bear with me a second so I can have a look at it. So what I need to do is sort of pull both of these in and then tighten that up. Not the easiest thing to do. Let's see if that sort of works. Move the out of alignment a bit. It's difficult to see if that's worked or not, but I think that's basically clamped the belt in, and then obviously we need to then tighten the. I'm going to check what size length screw I used on this side because This side seems a bit loose for my liking. Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, so yeah, let's do that. Right. This is the what I want. Back in. Five as well. Okay, so let's tighten this side up as well. So that's me. So what I'm doing, just loosening these screws. I think they were fairly loose anyway. And then we can tighten this up. So hold on. Okay, so let's tighten these up. So I might have to come in at a later date and just change the length of the belt, because this has gone to the maximum so I can adjust it. That gives you an idea. So this should now move. So it does, but it doesn't quite feel right to me. Not entirely sure what it is. It could just be how everything's moving, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure. So think about it. Let's have a look. Too tight. Maybe I could back them off just a touch. Back them off a little bit. So I think we definitely have to make some adjustments sort of as we go. But that one actually, I think they're now about the same, to be honest. I'm not quite sure what it is that sounds like something is rubbing somewhere, but I'm not entirely sure where. Gotta get this motor back on before I forget. My question is, will I try and run some more belt now, or we save that for another day? That drop that moved. Yeah, right. That. Definitely easier to do without these two motors on. So if you're building one of these and you haven't already done it, might be a good way to run those belts. Diagram and see if I think that I'm doing this correctly. Let me turn this around so it's facing the right way. So try and out. Okay. So from this pulley, come out and go round one side and then go outside of that one and go straight. Yeah, I think everything is going the right way. I'm just wondering, there's nothing really to tell you if these should be flush up against here. And I wonder if that will make any difference or not. I wonder if that will change the way belts run. Yeah, it just sounds, I don't know, sounds like something's rubbing or something, I don't know. little bit tight. Let's undo this. Release this bit. So yeah, I don't know whether to run more belts now or save that till next time. This is where we're basically at now. We've got our the axis belts. Come out of it. The axis belts are, I don't know what you would find this side as. So that does need to go. Yeah, not entirely sure where they need to go at the moment, but they're a little bit wrapped anyway. What we could do, nice little thread box. Huh? So I go back to the we could technically, I think where we'll finish today actually is to put these extrusions in, and then I think we'll save doing the tool head belts till next time. So let me get 2 extrusions for this. The size of it, oh right. I think we just want some extrusions with no holes in sides, threaded ends. These 2. These 2 should work, I should say. So yeah, so let's put those in. We want M310s. So these will go basically in here. A bit tight to get in. Good. Bit. That also sort of stiffened the whole thing up a little bit with these in. one. File them down a bit. Go in as well as the others have. Might be actually threaded that balance, but that. Might not have actually ever been threaded in this one. There we go. I'm going to have to investigate what's going on with that. That feels, belts aren't tight, but it feels just not quite smooth as it could be. So yeah, I'm going to look into that. I think about a 3.5 hour stream is probably quite enough for today. Still got quite a few things done. We're starting to look a bit more 3D printery. So the next stream will, if I've done anything about the belts, I'll obviously mention it. But what we'll try and do is get the full head belts, and I don't want to say we'll get the tool heads fitted, but we'll maybe start building them and maybe build one completely. So yeah, thank you for coming along. Go over to this window and say thank you for coming along, and hopefully see you next time. I will post about when the next one's going to be. Yeah, so thanks for coming. I'll see you next time.